This incident happened when I was in my senior year of high school. Even now, I still find it hard to forget the situation back then, and I still feel a bit scared whenever I occasionally recall it. It was late March, and the sky outside the window was overcast with gray. The third class was on American history, and I sat in the last row of the classroom, pretending to take notes as the teacher was discussing proxy wars during the Cold War. Everyone in the class was half asleep and half awake. That morning, there were no signs that it would become unforgettable. Suddenly, a burst of static noise came from the intercom. At first, no one reacted. That kind of sound often appeared. Feedback electrical noise, or notifications that stopped halfway. But then, the voice of the principal came out, urgent and shrill, in a tone I had never heard before.
"This is not a drill. Initiate lockdown immediately."
The room changed instantly. Our teacher didn't hesitate. He crossed the room in 3 quick steps, locked the door, shut off the lights, and motioned for us to move to the far corner away from the hallway. No jokes, no whispered comments. Everyone understood this wasn't procedural. This wasn't scheduled. There was a pause after the announcement, longer than normal, long enough that a few of us glanced at each other, unsure if more instructions were coming. Then the same message played again. Except the second time, something was wrong. It was technically the same voice, same pitch, same cadence, but it sounded empty, like someone had perfectly copied the sound without understanding the emotion behind it. The urgency was gone, replaced by something flat and unnatural. About 5 minutes into the lockdown, the power went out. Not just the lights, everything. The projector shut off, the vents stopped humming. Even the faint electrical buzz from the wall outlets disappeared. The silence felt physical, pressing inward, like being underwater. Then the intercom came back on. Only this time, the voice spoke slower. "This is not a drill. Initiate lockdown immediately. Do not open your doors, even if instructed otherwise." Our teacher stepped closer to the speaker, frowning. He opened his mouth to say something, and the broadcast cut off mid-word. That's when we heard the screaming. It started far away, somewhere down the hallway, high-pitched and erratic, like someone losing control of their voice. Then it got louder, closer. Mixed in with the screaming was laughter, sharp, broken bursts that didn't sound happy or amused, just unhinged. Someone slammed into lockers. Metal rang down the hallway, followed by another scream. This one lower and angrier. It sounded like pure rage being forced through a human throat. 2 students near me started crying silently. The screaming stopped right outside our classroom door. Then we heard heavy, labored breathing. It was followed by a sudden burst of laughter. Not loud, but raw and abrasive. And without warning, the laughter twisted into a scream so sharp, it nearly pierced my ears. Someone dragged their fingers along the lockers, the metal producing a grating, teeth, aching screech. Then, the door handle moved, slowly, carefully, not yanked, not shaken, tested. A moment passed, then came 3 sharp knocks, unevenly spaced. A voice followed, calm, familiar. "Mr. Hansen, it's administration. You can unlock the door now." Every student looked at our teacher. His name was Mr. Hansen. His face had gone pale. He shook his head immediately and whispered administration would never send someone during a lockdown. Outside, the voice laughed. Not loudly, just a low rasping chuckle that turned into another scream halfway through. The sound was so sudden and shrill that someone in the room gasped out loud. The voice repeated itself, perfectly controlled again. "Mr. Hansen, it's administration. You can unlock the door now." Our teacher backed away from the door. The laughter came back, louder this time. Then yelling words slurred together, impossible to make out. Something hit the door once, hard enough to make it shake. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the footsteps moved on. The screaming faded down the hallway, replaced by intermittent laughter and incoherent shouting, until we couldn't hear it anymore. No one moved. No one spoke. The lockdown ended nearly an hour later when police physically escorted us out of the classroom. Administration later blamed the incident on a malfunctioning intercom system combined with a trespasser. Here's the part that still doesn't sit right with me. When I asked the principal about the second announcement, the one telling us not to open our doors, he insisted it never happened. According to system logs, the intercom was completely offline during the power outage, but every student in that room heard it, and every one of us remembers the screaming. This lockdown happened during my sophomore year, 5th period, advanced mathematics, and it's the only school-related incident I've ever experienced that still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. Not because of chaos or violence, but because of how quiet and procedural everything felt. Like a system that was supposed to protect us had quietly malfunctioned. It was a normal weekday afternoon, the kind where the air in the classroom felt stale and time dragged on endlessly. Our teacher was lecturing on the most difficult part to understand, while most of us stared blankly at our notebooks. Nothing felt unusual until the intercom cut him off mid-sentence. "This is a lockdown! This is not a drill!" The teacher reacted immediately. He locked the classroom door, turned off the lights, and directed us to move to the back of the room, behind the tall filing cabinets and book carts. We had practiced this plenty of times before, but the tone of the announcement erased any sense of familiarity. No one spoke, no one laughed. We sat there in silence for several minutes. After a while, the teacher quietly took the attendance sheet from his desk. He whispered that he needed to make sure everyone was accounted for, in case administrators or emergency responders asked. He began calling names softly. When he called mine, I raised my hand. Everyone else did the same. Then, when he read a name none of us recognized, he clearly paused. At first, we assumed he had misspoken. The silence stretched on for a long moment. Then, a male voice spoke from the back of the room. Here, it wasn't loud. It wasn't panicked. If anything, it sounded casual, almost bored. Every head turned toward the sound. That corner of the room was dark, partially blocked by cabinets and backpacks. I couldn't clearly see who spoke, only the low outline of someone crouched near the floor. The teacher froze. He tentatively read out that name again. "I'm here," the voice replied again. The teacher's voice was a bit stiff as he asked who had just responded, but no one answered. He finished roll call quickly and closed the roll sheet, his hands visibly shaking. He told us that no matter what we heard, we were not to make a sound. About 10 minutes later, someone ran past our classroom in the hallway. We heard shouting, but couldn't make out the words. The door handle was yanked hard enough to rattle the frame, then released. Whoever it was didn't try again. Roughly 30 minutes later, the lockdown ended. Police officers escorted us out of the classroom and immediately pulled our teacher aside. We weren't allowed to linger in the hallway. Later, we learned that the name on the attendance sheet belonged to a substitute teacher who had worked at the school years earlier and had quit suddenly. Police searched the classroom thoroughly. They found no extra person, no disturbed vents, no cabinets out of place. But the check mark next to that name was still there, and the name appeared wedged between two others, as if it had been added after the fact. A month later, our teacher transferred to another school. No explanation was ever given.